In the ancient manor where shadows dance and whispers of long-buried secrets float in the air, our tale begins to unravel, centered around Emily, a fair young woman whose courage and heart stand resilient against the harshness of those around her. As we delve deeper into Emily's story, we weave new dimensions into her life, intertwining with the fates of secondary characters, the dark past of Mr. Edward, and the thrilling adventures that unfold within the walls of this time-worn estate. In the dim and chilly corridors of the manor, where the walls hold secrets that reveal themselves reluctantly, a host of secondary characters enters the scene, each carrying the weight of their own mysterious pasts and memories. The servants of the manor, though seemingly humble, are burdened with tales from a bygone era, their destinies intertwined with the manor as if it were a thread in the fabric of their lives. There was Oliver, the steward whose face bore the marks of age, his voice emerging with difficulty as if each word was weighed before being spoken. Oliver was no ordinary steward. He was a keeper of untold stories, narratives of Mr. Edward's shadowy past that had never seen the light of day. These were tales that could freeze the blood if revealed. Oliver knew secrets that no one else dared to speak of, secrets that had lain dormant in the empty corridors of the manor. Then there was Margaret, the cook, who always appeared with a serene smile, her knife handled with care as if it were a trusted companion. Yet behind this placid demeanor, Margaret concealed a past scarred with pain and wounds, dating back to Mr. Edward's youth when his father, Sir Randolph, was the master of the manor. Margaret had been a young kitchen maid then, witnessing things she was never meant to see, things that unveiled another side of Edward, a side known only to a few, and perhaps one no one wished to explore. On a rainy day, Oliver sat alone in his small office beside the kitchen, sifting through old documents with eyes heavy with fatigue. He was searching for an important paper amid the cluttered archives of the manor. Instead, he discovered an old letter sealed with Sir Randolph's crest. His gaze fixed on the letter for a moment, he was transported back to his youth when he had seen Sir Randolph write that letter in his study, his heart pounding as though something terrifying had occurred. At that moment, Margaret entered to place a steaming cup of tea on his desk. Noticing the sudden unease on Oliver's face, she sat beside him and whispered, "You found it, haven't you? The letter that was never meant to see the light of day." Oliver nodded silently, his eyes still locked on the brittle yellowed paper. The letter bore Sir Randolph's signature, but it was not addressed to any of the servants. Instead, it was addressed to a mysterious figure outside the manor, someone surrounded by rumors of dubious involvement. Perhaps then, not everything Edward believed about his father was true. Margaret turned to Oliver and said, "Mr. Edward must be informed. It's time to lift the veil on these old secrets. But we must be cautious. There are still those alive who do not want these secrets uncovered." Oliver nodded again, feeling that the day he had feared for years was drawing near. A new dawn was about to reveal secrets that the manor had tried to bury for so long. The long corridors of the manor awaited a new day, a day when fates would intertwine and everyone's destiny would change. Thus began a new adventure, alive with the spirit of the 17th century, where souls intertwined with past tales, and old betrayals met secrets buried deep within the manor. New revelations would surface and events unforeseeable by anyone were set to unfold, but one thing was certain: this manor would remain a witness to all that had happened and all that was yet to come. Chapter 2. Friends of the Past and Ghosts of Memory. As Emily's suffering deepens within the manor's shadowy confines, where sorrows intertwine with the heavy darkness that clings to every corner, fate moves slowly to bring back figures from her past, people she thought had vanished into the distant corridors of time. The manor, with its majestic ambience and closed doors, enveloped her life in solitude and isolation, yet it also held surprises she never anticipated. One day, while Emily sat in the manor's overgrown back garden, seeking refuge from the manor's oppressive gloom, she heard faint footsteps approaching. She lifted her gaze slowly to find a tall man standing before her, his face marked with both old and fresh scars, his features bearing the traces of battles fought far from this place. It was Jonathan, her childhood companion, who had always stood by her and shielded her from life's harshness. Jonathan, she uttered his name hesitantly, as if fearing he might be a phantom from the past, but his features were real, and his deep voice confirmed his return. Emily, I never expected to find you here after all these years, he said, his voice carrying a blend of nostalgia and sorrow. I've returned from distant lands, from places I shouldn't have ventured. Yet, despite everything, I never forgot you. Jonathan's eyes spoke of untold stories, tales of perilous adventures and hidden wounds that never heal. Yet, beneath it all, there was a deeper, darker secret in his gaze that he struggled to conceal. Why have you returned? She asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. Why now, after all this time? Jonathan sighed deeply and took a step closer to her, then sat beside her on the wooden bench. I've returned because there's something you need to know. Something about Mr. Edward, about his past, and our confrontation. Emily froze, her heart pounding. Confrontation? What do you mean? Jonathan took a deep breath and began to recount a tale. A blend of blood, betrayal, and honor. As a young adventurer, he had crossed paths with Edward during one of his journeys to Eastern Europe. They had been young men, immersed in adventures and honor-bound conflicts. But what Emily didn't know was that Jonathan and Edward weren't merely travel companions. They were rivals in a fateful duel, a clash that left scars neither could ever fully heal. Jonathan's story painted a vivid picture of their rivalry, filled with dangerous encounters and moments of bitter betrayal. He spoke of a time when their paths had crossed in a struggle for something greater than either of them had anticipated. The intensity of their confrontation had left its mark not only on their bodies but on their souls. Now it seemed that their past was converging once more in the very manor that had once been a haven for Emily. As Jonathan's narrative unfolded, Emily's mind raced to piece together the fragments of this dark history. The manor, once a symbol of isolation and despair, now seemed to pulse with the echoes of past conflicts. The ghosts of memory were rising to confront the present. That was in a remote village in the Carpathian Mountains, Jonathan began, his voice trembling with the weight of memory as though reliving the events anew. We were searching for something specific, a treasure, or perhaps something more significant, a family secret. We met there under unexpected circumstances and found ourselves face to face, in a battle that could only end with one of us dead. But Jonathan's voice faltered, his gaze distant as he recalled the pivotal moments. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill him. And although I left him there in those mountains, I knew he hadn't forgotten. Emily listened, her heart racing as Jonathan's revelation shattered her understanding of the man she thought she knew. Edward had never spoken of his past, and Emily had never imagined he harbored such profound and dangerous secrets. Yet now, it was clear that Jonathan's return to the manor was no mere coincidence. It was part of a deeper, more sinister scheme. Jonathan's presence here was fraught with peril, not only for Emily but for everyone residing in the ancient manor. As they sat in the garden's silence, Emily's mind whirled with questions. What will happen now? Jonathan's expression shifted to a cryptic smile, one that concealed more than it revealed. In a forgotten corner of the manor, where dust had settled into thick layers on the old furniture, Emily began her search for anything that might help her unravel the mysteries surrounding her new life. The ancient manor, with its storied past, was filled with hidden secrets, and sometimes finding the key to those secrets required nothing more than a fresh perspective on the obscured corners. As she examined the old shelves in the library, a room that had remained sealed for decades, Emily discovered a small wooden box cloaked in a thick layer of dust. The box held a collection of old journals bound with leather strings, their presence hinting at stories yet untold. With a mix of trepidation and excitement, Emily carefully opened one of the journals, its yellowed pages crackling softly as she turned them. The journal was filled with faded, ancient script, offering a glimpse into the storied history of Edward's family. Emily read with growing intensity, her eyes scanning the meticulously penned words. Each page revealed new dimensions of the tragic saga that had unfolded within the family. She uncovered accounts of betrayal, buried secrets, and unresolved conflicts that had shaped the family's dark legacy. The more she read, the more the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, painting a grim picture of a past that had cast long shadows over the present. Emily's heart raced as she realized that the secrets she was unearthing were not just historical footnotes, but were intricately woven into the very fabric of her current predicament. The journals unfolded a tale of bitter betrayal, a betrayal from those who were meant to be allies. The narrative transported Emily back to a time when Mr. Randolph, Edward's father, was fervently expanding his influence and power. The family lived in opulence, yet the greed of certain relatives drove them to conspire against Randolph, seeking to usurp his position. Their ambition was met with ruthless vengeance. One particularly harrowing chapter provided a vivid account of a massacre within the manor, where blood flowed through its cold corridors. In the flickering light of her lantern, Emily surveyed the room with a mix of dread and fascination. The furniture was covered with heavy cloths, their once rich fabric now tattered and grayed with age. A large ornate mirror hung on the wall, its surface clouded and cracked, reflecting a distorted image of the room back at her. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books and trinkets that had long since been abandoned to the ravages of time. As she moved deeper into the room, Emily's hand brushed against a small chest sitting in the corner, half hidden under a crumbling tapestry. The chest was locked, but the rusted metal hinges gave way easily under her determined effort. Inside, she found a collection of items, letters, photographs, and a small, intricately carved wooden box. The letters were old, their ink faded, but they still carried the weight of the emotions that had been poured into them. They spoke of love and loss, betrayal and hope, hinting at the turbulent history that had shaped the lives of those who had lived in the manor before her. Among the letters was one that stood out, a letter written in the same hand as the one she had found earlier, the one that had led her to this very room. It was addressed to Edward, and as she read it, Emily's heart began to race. The letter spoke of the object she had been searching for, describing it as a talisman of great power, something that could change the course of events, for better or worse. It warned of the dangers of tampering with it, of the lives that had already been lost in pursuit of its secrets. Emily's mind whirled as she tried to piece together the puzzle. The manor was more than just a home. It was a vault of history, a place where the past clung stubbornly to the present, refusing to let go. And now she was entangled in that history, a part of a legacy that was as dark as it was mysterious. The weight of this realization pressed heavily on her, yet she knew that turning back was no longer an option. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but it was a path she had to walk, for herself, for Edward, and for the truth that had been buried for too long. As she placed the items back in the chest and closed it with a quiet resolve, Emily felt a shift within herself. She was no longer just a guest in this manor. She was a guardian of its secrets, bound to uncover the truth no matter the cost. The trials she faced were not just physical challenges but tests of her spirit, her courage and her will to survive. In a world where the past was never truly past, and the shadows of history loomed large over the present,